Morning, math heads. So we are, of course, still learning about numbers in math always, and of course, we're always still doing our story problems in math. But we're learning some. We're starting a new unit, and it's all about measurement. And measurement is kind of a really strange thing because we actually use it nonstop throughout our day, but you don't actually think of it in terms of math. So, one of the biggest ways we measure things in life is by time. So, think about it. Somebody asks you how old you are, and you say, I'm 7 years old. Well, that means you have been alive for 7 years. That's measuring time by years. Those of you who have baby brothers or sisters, you'll hear your families say things like, oh, they're 8 months old, or they're 12 weeks old. Well, again, that's telling us by a certain amount of time how old they are. So we do measure time all the time. That's funny. The other thing that we measure is if you've ever watched anybody cook. If we were going to make pancakes, I don't just take out the box of pancake mix and just throw some in and then throw in some water and then throw in some eggs. I follow a recipe and I have to measure. So it's usually a certain amount of pancake mix and a certain amount of water or milk. And so we measure to cook all the time too. And then one of the other things that we measure is distance and length. And we start small, obviously, by measuring things with a ruler. But then as you get older, we measure things in miles, how long it's going to take us to get places. How many miles is it from one place to another? So measurement can be really tricky. It's something that grown-ups talk about all the time. And as a kid, you kind of don't understand exactly what it means. So for this unit, what you're going to have to be doing is doing a lot of measuring. That's the best way to learn. So it might mean that you're cooking in the kitchen or helping cook in the kitchen. It might mean that you're measuring furniture. If we were in the classroom, I would be having you measure your desks, measure your chair. It might mean that you look up your favorite animal and you find out how long it is. And you go outside and you measure it on the ground in chalk. That's something that we would have done with whales. Since whales are my favorite, we would have gone out to the big playground and measured whales. So the best practice for learning how to measure things is to be in real life. Learn how to tell time, learn how to cook, learn how to measure different things. So that's what we're going to do today. So I have kind of a fun story for us. And then throughout the week, we're just going to kind of do different little mini lessons to help you kind of learn measurement. Very big word in math. Okay. Welcome to Weights and Measures. Here are some words: foot, gallon, ounce, meter, mile, pint, quart, and many more. What do they all mean? Let's start reading and find out. Now, do you think by reading this book, you're going to understand what all those things are? No, never. In fact, there are still things in here that I have to look up when I'm cooking or when I'm doing something. Teddy's in 5th grade. He's still doing this right now in 5th grade. So if this seems to you like it's very overwhelming and a lot of information, just enjoy it. Listen to some of those words that you've heard before, and we'll start working with them on our own. If something is a foot long, how long is it? Is it as long as an elephant's foot? Is it as long as a chicken's foot? A baby's foot? A basketball player's foot? These feet are all different lengths. So if I asked you to measure your room with your foot, well, your size foot is different than my size foot. So let's say I was buying a carpet for your room and I said, hey, I need you to walk across your room and tell me how many feet it is. Well, your foot is smaller than mine. So what your length is going to be would be different from if I walked across your room with my big feet. So that's not going to work. We can't measure feet like that. That's why we have a ruler. And this ruler right here is exactly 1 foot. And everyone uses the same measure for 1 foot instead of using their actual foot, right? So here it is. Everyone needs to use the same measurement when describing a distance or a length. Here's a ruler. It will help us measure things. Inch. Here is 1 inch. Each piece of candy here is 1 inch wide. 2 pieces of candy side by side are 2 inches wide. So an inch is a lot smaller than a foot. Here is a foot. No, not the foot in your shoe. In this book, a foot is a unit of measure. 12 inches equals 1 foot. And that's exactly what you see. If you have a ruler at home, that's exactly what you'll see on your ruler. Look, starts over here with 0, because we always start with 0, and then it goes all the way up to 12, because 12 inches equals a foot. If something is a yard long, it does not mean the same thing as a yard by someone's house. 1 yard is the same length as 3 feet. 36 inches is the same as 1 yard. So if I put 3 of these rulers together, I would get something called a yard. In the classroom, we have a yardstick, which is 3 of these put together. At home, most people don't have yardsticks. But that is what they mean. If they measure something in yards, it doesn't mean your backyard. It means an actual measure of a yard, which is 3 of these. It's so confusing. How long is a mile? It is exactly 1,760 yards. It's also 5,280 feet. How many Hershey's milk chocolate bars with almonds placed end to end would you need to make a mile? You would need more than 12,000 of them. So a mile is really far. In PE, when we would run around the blacktop, you guys would probably run around and run 1 mile each time we had PE. Well, that is 5,280 of these. Can you believe that? That's how strong your legs are. So that is where we're starting for that. Now here is, so that's measuring length, how long something is, right? Okay, but then when you were born, they measured how long you were, but they didn't just measure how long you were. They also measured how heavy you were. Well, that's completely different than length. If I wanted to measure how much you weigh, this is not going to do it. And that's where we get into weight. Ounce. Here is 1 ounce. It is a measure of a specific amount of weight. There are 12 pieces in a Hershey's milk chocolate bar. Together, 8 of the pieces weigh about an ounce. So an ounce is very, very, very light. A pound. A pound is 16 ounces. If someone asks you, how much do you weigh? It is very common to give the answer in pounds. This bag of Twizzler Twists weighs 1 pound. So most likely when you were born, you weighed somewhere probably within like the 6 pounds to 8 pounds range. Babies can be born and weigh less than that. They can weigh smaller amounts, like 3, 4, or 5 pounds. They can even weigh more than that. They can weigh up to 10 pounds. But we say that babies weigh in the pound amount. And then as you get older, your doctor checks to see how much you weigh. And a lot of times they'll tell you a pound amount, especially because it has to do with riding in car seats. You have to be a certain weight before you can just ride in the car seat like a grown-up. 5 pounds. Wow, here's a Hershey's milk chocolate bar that weighs 5 pounds. The Hershey's Chocolate Factory makes them. The students in your school could share one 5-pound bar among themselves. 5 pounds of chocolate would be a lot of chocolate. A ton is 2,000 pounds. This pile is a ton of Twizzlers, cherry-flavored nibs. Do not eat them all at once. 2,000 pounds is 1 ton. I'm pretty sure an elephant weighs about a ton. Maybe an automobile, a car, weighs about a ton. So that's very heavy, obviously. All right, now, cooking. So we've gone over length, how long things are. Then we went over weight, how heavy something is. But when you're cooking, a lot of times it doesn't ask you for length. It doesn't ask you for how much something weighs because most of us don't have scales in our kitchen to weigh things. It asks for something very different. It asks for something called volume. And that is when we get into things like measuring cups. It's a different way to measure. Here is 1 fluid ounce of Hershey's chocolate syrup. Let's make some chocolate milk. So if you look on the side of a big measuring cup, you'll see ounces. And then here is a cup. In this book, a cup does not mean a glass or a cup from your kitchen cabinet. 1 cup is 8 fluid ounces. Here is a cup of chocolate milk. Delicious. So again, if I was making pancakes and I said, if I was reading the recipe out loud and I said to Cammie or Teddy, hey, I need a cup of milk. They don't mean go to your kitchen cupboard and get any cup that you find, because some of us have cups that are small. Some of us have cups that are big. Some of us have cups that are really fat. Some of us have cups that are skinnier. So that would be a different size. So they mean you need to actually get a measuring cup that is 1 cup. And that means everybody has the same 1 cup measuring cup in our world to measure. Pint. If you think 2 cups of chocolate milk, if you drink 2 cups of chocolate milk, it's the same as drinking a pint. 2 cups equals 1 pint. A pint is also equal to 16 ounces. So pints you usually don't buy very often. I think we usually buy a pint sometimes of cream around the holidays when we're making certain dishes. Otherwise, though, when we go to the grocery store, most of us don't buy pints of anything. It's sort of a weird amount. It's not a lot. Here's quarts. Waiter, I would like to order 1 quart of chocolate milk, please. 2 pints equals 1 quart. 4 cups equal 1 quart. So again, in our house, we don't really buy anything that's in a quart. But I do know a lot of my friends who drink coffee get their creamer. And when they get their creamer for their coffee, it comes in a quart size. So if you were to look in your refrigerator, you could look and see if you have any pints and quarts. In our house, in the McGee house, we really don't. We don't buy anything from the store that's that size. Now we do buy gallons. Gallons is probably more common in a lot of our houses. 4 quarts equal 1 gallon. 1 quart is a quarter of a gallon. That's where the word quart comes from. How many pints are in a gallon? How many cups? Holy moly. So 1 gallon, a lot of times we'll buy our milk in a gallon jug, or sometimes water in a gallon jug, and that's 16 cups. that equal 1 gallon. 8 pints equal 1 gallon, or 4 quarts equal 1 gallon. So the next time you go to the grocery store, which I'm sure you're not going to the grocery store right now, most of us are staying home, but when you go into the milk aisle, you'll see all those different sizes. And a lot of times it's the same product, so it might just be milk, but you can decide what size you want to buy it in. And this is how it's measured. They don't just get any container they want and fill it up. They use these actual measures. How many gallons of water are in the ocean? Billions and billions and billions of gallons. What if the ocean was made of chocolate milk? The whales probably wouldn't like it. But Mrs. McGee would, because she loves chocolate milk. Okay, here's the next one I've talked to you about, time. There's another thing we measure. It is called time. How long did it take to read this book? Did it take a second, a minute, or an hour? So there's 60 seconds in 1 minute, there's 60 minutes in 1 hour, and there's 24 hours in 1 day. Okay, so get a good look at that. Now, how about in a year? There are 24 hours in 1 day. There are 7 days in 1 week. There are 52 weeks in 1 year. There are also 12 months in 1 year. Did it take you 1 year to read this book? No. So this is especially true for babies. We start by measuring babies by how many days old they are. So if you just had a brand new baby brother or sister, you would say, oh, my baby is 4 days old. Oh, my baby is 6 days old. But then all of a sudden they're a week old. So then we start measuring by how old babies are in weeks. Oh, here's my baby, it's 5 weeks old. Oh, here's my baby, it's 7 weeks old. Then we get to a certain point though, where we don't measure in weeks really anymore, we just change it to months. So we'll say, oh, my baby is 6 months old. Oh, my baby is 8 months old. And then finally, when that baby is 12 months old, we switch to years. So we kind of start going bigger and bigger. And now you guys are about 7 years old, most of you. We wouldn't say how old you are in months or in weeks. That would be kind of strange. We'll just say, oh, here's so-and-so, they're 7 years old. We wouldn't convert it to weeks or months. So time's very important to measure by. Here is something we cannot measure. We cannot measure how much you love reading. We hope you always love to read. So that is something we can't measure. Our love for things. We like to say, I love you to the moon and back, or I love you around the world 1,000,000 times. But we're lucky that there cannot be a measurement on things like love. So we're going to have a good time with measurement this week. It's not going to look like regular. It's not going to be in our green book. It's not going to be a lot of pencil to paper. It's going to be a lot of real life, which is really fun. Okay? So I love you. I love you. I love you 1,000,000,000,000 million trillion. And I miss you. And there's no place like home. Bye.